The voice that knew my name. The forest had always been my reset button. Every autumn, before Minnesota's winter locked the land in ice, I'd take a solo camping trip north. No reception, no noise, just endless trees and a mirror-flat lake. That October weekend felt perfect. I'd reached my favorite hidden spot, a lake so small it barely had a name on the map. For 3 straight days, it was paradise. No other campers. Just the hiss of the wind sliding through pines and the crackle of my campfire echoing across the water. By the 4th morning, the peace broke. When I unzipped my tent, frost glittered on the leaves and boot prints covered the ground. Not animal tracks. Not mine. Heavy-soled prints circled the fire pit, the cooler, the tent, even stopped inches from where my head had been sleeping. My breath fogged in the cold air. Whoever had come through here, they'd done it while I was out cold, and they hadn't woken me. I spent hours combing the shoreline and nearby trail. No new tents. No tire marks. No voices. It was as if someone had appeared, watched, and vanished. The idea of leaving crossed my mind, but pride kept me there. This was my last trip of the season. Maybe it had been another hiker who turned back. By sunset, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. When night came, I sat beside the dying campfire, coat zipped to my chin. The lake reflected a faded crescent moon, the only light for miles. I leaned back in my chair, half asleep, listening to water lap against the rocks. That's when I heard it. My name. Spoken softly, like someone calling from across the trees. I jolted upright, eyes wide. Every sound vanished except the hammering in my chest. The forest stood still. Not a twig snapped. Not a ripple moved. "Hello," I called. Only my own voice came back, bouncing through the woods. After a few minutes, I told myself I'd imagined it, a dream mixing with the crackle of the fire. My eyelids grew heavy again. The orange coals faded to gray. Then it happened a second time. My name, whispered again, clearer, closer, the tone almost pleading. I shot to my feet, scanning the tree line. "Who's there?" No answer. Just the hush of wind between branches. But the voice came again. It wasn't a shout, more like someone coaxing me forward. I felt a cold pull inside my stomach. Whoever was out there knew my name. I took one step toward the dark woods and froze. Every instinct screamed, "Don't move." That voice didn't sound lost. It sounded deliberate, careful, patient. I grabbed my pack and began tearing down camp with shaking hands. My flashlight stayed off. I didn't want to give away where I was. As I worked, I heard soft crunches, slow footsteps moving somewhere beyond the last reach of firelight. When the last of my gear was stuffed into the bag, I swung it over my shoulder and turned toward the trail. The voice called one final time, my name again, drawn out like a question. I forced myself not to look back. Only when I reached the ridge above the lake did I give in to curiosity. I turned and saw the camp below, lit faintly by the last orange ember glow. And there, just beyond the fire pit, stood a figure. Still. Silent. Watching. The outline was human but off somehow, its shape too rigid, too long. I blinked, and the ember light died, leaving only darkness. The forest swallowed everything again. I ran the rest of the way to my car. The moment the locks clicked and headlights cut through the fog, I felt that crushing stillness finally release me. 3 years later, I still can't decide what I heard that night. A stranger's prank, a sleep-blurred dream, or something the woods didn't want me to see. But I know one thing for sure. That voice knew my name. Cameron's disappearance. They say you never really know the people you work with. That thought didn't mean much to me until the week Cameron vanished. We'd started our office jobs within days of each other. He was friendly, funny, and had that easy charisma that made long workdays tolerable. We'd often talk about hiking trails or dream of weekend camping trips to escape the city grind. It was harmless small talk until one day his desk was just empty. The supervisor told me he'd been let go. No details, no warning. Just gone. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. "Cameron, hey man. Finally free. You still up for that camping trip?" I hesitated. Something about the timing felt off. But guilt and curiosity won. Maybe he just needed a friend. Maybe this would be closure. We agreed to meet the next weekend, 2 hours west of the city, at a remote forest trailhead I'd never been to. When I got there, Cameron was already waiting. He looked different.
Pale.
Restless. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Man, good to see you," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. But his hand lingered a moment too long. We started down the narrow dirt trail, backpacks slung tight, the sun slicing through the treetops. It felt normal for the first mile, small talk about weather, work, the usual. But when I gently asked about why he got fired, his expression closed. He looked straight ahead. "Don't worry about it." His tone didn't sound angry, just final. The unease crept in slowly, like the temperature dropping before a storm. By the time we reached the clearing, daylight was thinning. We set up camp near a shallow stream, our tents side by side. Everything looked like a scene from one of those peaceful outdoor vlogs, except for the tension neither of us mentioned. After lunch, Cameron suddenly stood up. "Be right back," he said. He walked into the trees without another word. No jacket. No flashlight. Just vanished into the woods. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I thought about following him, but before I could move, he returned, expression blank. "Everything okay?" I asked. He smiled too quickly.
Yeah. Why?
I didn't push it. A few hours later, while we were mid-conversation about trail routes, he did it again. Mid-sentence. He just stopped talking, turned, and walked into the trees. I stared after him, the silence stretching longer than before. He came back again, calm, almost rehearsed, brushing dirt off his hands. When I asked where he went, he paused, then said, "Nowhere." The word didn't sound like a lie. It sounded empty, like he couldn't remember the truth. Night fell fast. The campfire cracked and spat shadows across the tents. We barely talked. Eventually, we went to sleep. I woke hours later. No sound, just the weight of silence pressing against the tent. Something felt wrong. I unzipped the flap and looked out. Cameron's tent stood open. Empty. The flashlight he'd brought was gone. I called his name, no answer. Then I heard whispering from the woods. 2 voices.
Low.
"Careful. Cameron?" I called again. The whispering stopped. 30 seconds of silence stretched like hours, until Cameron stepped out of the dark, into the edge of the firelight. His smile was gone. "Who was that?" I asked. He didn't respond, just shook his head. Footsteps crunched behind him, slow, deliberate. "Cameron," I repeated, voice breaking. "Who's out there?" He stared at me for a long second and said, quietly, "No one." Something primal inside me snapped. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and ran, branches slapping against my arms, heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else. Behind me, I could hear voices again. 2 of them. Cameron's and someone else's. I didn't stop until I saw my car through the trees. I threw myself inside and drove until the forest disappeared in my rearview mirror. When I got home, I tried texting Cameron. The message never delivered. He'd already blocked me. I never saw him again. Sometimes I wonder if he ever left those woods, or if he's still out there, waiting for someone else to take his place. The knock at the cabin. I'd always loved the calm of my hometown. A tiny stretch of road surrounded by endless forest, where the air always smelled like pine and the sky turned purple before rain. After years away, I came back that November, craving peace, nostalgia, and a week alone in a rented cabin. The cabin sat on the edge of a worn hiking trail that curved deep into the woods. I told myself it was perfect, far enough for quiet, close enough to town if I needed help. For 2 days, it was everything I wanted. Coffee on the porch. Mist crawling across the lake each morning. No cars, no voices. By the 3rd day, though, the forest changed. That afternoon, I took the trail toward a small campsite a mile away, my first real attempt at camping alone. The trees were thin and pale this time of year, like ribs showing through skin. I was focused on adjusting my pack when I felt it, that invisible weight. Someone watching. I kept walking, telling myself it was nerves. But the feeling stayed, an electric hum at the back of my neck that never left. When I reached the clearing, I tried to shake it off. The campsite wasn't much: an old fire ring, a patch of dirt, and enough space for one tent. I unpacked, following every tutorial I'd memorized online. It was clumsy but satisfying until I heard footsteps. A man stepped out from the trees. He looked my age, tall, unremarkable, except for his smile. It didn't reach his eyes. Just a flat grin, teeth bared but lifeless. He waved once, wordless, and began setting up a tent about 30 feet away. I thought it was strange, but not enough to panic. People camped near each other all the time, right? Except that was all he brought. One tent. No backpack, no food, no sleeping bag. Through the mesh, I could see the inside, completely empty.
He just sat there,
watching. Every time I glanced up, his head would slowly turn until our eyes met. Then he'd look away, pretending to adjust something. The sun dropped fast, the woods sinking into blue shadow. My gut screamed leave. I told myself I'd overreacted. Still, as I started to pack, the man stood. He didn't speak, just stared, that faint grin gone now, face blank. I threw everything into my bag, zipped it half closed, and started down the trail. Behind me, I could feel his eyes on my back. For 10 minutes, I saw nothing when I turned around. Then I looked again and froze. Far down the trail, between two trees, a dark figure moved. He was following. The air went cold. I walked faster, then jogged, then ran. Branches tore at my coat as the trail wound back toward the cabin. When I finally burst through the clearing, dusk had turned to black. I slammed the cabin door shut, locked it twice, and dropped to the floor. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might shake the windows. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. And then a knock. Not gentle. Not curious. A pounding. Deliberate. Heavy. Desperate. My hands shook as I called the police. The knocking stopped. Footsteps circled the cabin, crunching through dead leaves. Then a thud on the window. Another at the back door. For a moment, I thought he'd gotten in. But then silence. The patrol car arrived 20 minutes later. The officers found nothing. No footprints. No tent. No sign anyone had ever been there. They searched the trail, even the campsite, empty. The man had vanished, as if the woods themselves had taken him back. That night, I didn't sleep. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left the campsite when I did, if I'd waited just a little longer. The cabin is still listed for rent. But if you go there and hear a knock after dark, don't open the door.